Hello. If you're hearing my voice right now, then you have stumbled onto the podcast where real stories of professional criminal profilers are told by professional assholes. Welcome to Profiling Payne. Hey guys, welcome back to Profiling Payne. This is the official second episode, and Chiron is in the studio once again. So go ahead and go.
What's up?
All right, so we have me, Chris Payne, your host. Let's go around the circle.
Fuego here.
And I'm Matthew Higgins.
All right, so on this one, we're going to actually cover the profiler, but we're going to get into that in a second. Right now, I want to cover current events. Now, we have no political affiliation that we're going to talk about. We're not going to discuss religion or anything else like that. This is a safe place.
I'm a registered independent.
But what we are going to talk about are a couple assholes that made the news recently, and one of them is actually very, very close to the case we were just talking about. So I'm going to go ahead and start it off. So in recent news, Cesar Sayoc, former pizza delivery guy and a male stripper, sent bombs by mail to Democrats and received and perceived anti-Trumpers alike. So his people he sent bombs to covered everywhere from Hillary Clinton to the restaurant of one Robert De Niro. So he sealed all these packages with Scotch tape, so his fingerprints stuck to it. Took absolutely no time at all for forensic science to pick it up. They dragged him in. No Metesky, no long-term, lasting bomb spree, but definitely an asshole all on his own. So anybody got a profile they want to throw out on this guy? Something quick?
Was he a stripper during the day and a pizza guy at night? Or a pizza guy during the day or a stripper at night? Because either way, it
Shows you what kind of stripper he was.
shows you how much money he made.
I would imagine he probably wasn't eating too much of the pizza if he was a male stripper.
Right, yeah. Carbs are the enemy.
But did he dance up the driveway?
Did he ever have to strip as the pizza boy?
Did he ever have the pizza?
He's invited inside. All those pornos.
I like that. I like that.
Sausage.
Double sausage for you.
All right.
No, this guy is definitely just somebody who had nothing else to do with their time. He danced, he delivered pizza. Maybe he just like, fuck it, I'm gonna start making bombs.
He's obviously got some high aspirations
Yeah.
for his existence
He
if
definitely
he's
feels
doing
like
this
he
kind
needs
of
to be
thing.
someone bigger than he is.
I mean, do you think maybe he's somebody else who found almost like kindred spirits in the movement that's been going, per se? You know what I mean?
I'm just saying, like, it doesn't matter what you do. If you're a stripper, make your money.
I like that. All right.
Something stoked the coals, though, obviously, and I know that there's a lot of political and social unrest right
Yeah.
now, on both sides of the spectrum and stuff like that. So, I mean, I don't know. The blue is pissed off about this and current presidency, and I feel like the red has, I don't know, they've been enabled a little bit more with such a brash president like we have right now. So I feel like extremism is going up on
So
both
you think it's
sides.
somebody seeking validation, and this is how they decided to go across it, maybe?
Possibly. He also just, wanted to stir the shit and create a spectacle and stuff. I didn't read too much about this story. I saw it in the headlines, but not everybody on the right side is evil as hell, and not everybody on the blue side is super virtuous
Right.
or whatever. And so that's why, I mean, people are people at the end of the day. We're all separate shades of gray and stuff
Right.
like that. But obviously, people like this guy, they give a bad reputation and they feed a stereotype.
Right.
This guy probably voted Nader.
All right. So our assessment of this guy is
So he was apprehended.
yeah.
obviously.
So he's a we're gonna go ahead and do a call back to the last episode. He's just a publicity seeking jerk then. All right. Fair enough.
Well, I mean, so nothing went off?
No, nothing exploded at all.
No. Was it intended to?
I
Did he really know what he was
I think I read somewhere. I didn't dive too deeply. I just wanted to do a quick outline.
What was the capacity of the bomb?
I honestly, yeah.
You got chlorine, you got batteries.
And unfortunately, you
technically
have
a
all
black
of the
cat is a
information
bomb.
Yeah.
to learn how to do it on the
Shit,
internet.
I can make mustard gas in my toilet.
You can make mustard gas on accident with the wrong cleaning products. All right. Well,
I love mustard. I love all kinds of mustard. Oh man, give me some honey mustard. Give me some spicy brown. Give me some.
don't worry, you'll get some spicy brown. I knew where you were going with that.
Okay,
All
I
right.
don't want no spicy brown from you, bro.
All right, so the second asshole is Robert Bowers. He's the guy that actually opened fire, killing 11 people in a Pittsburgh synagogue recently.
Yeah, this was.
I mean, our hearts go out to the families for sure. Right now, he's currently standing trial in federal court for a 44-count indictment, and he faces the death penalty. So,
It was described by Pittsburgh as their darkest. day.
yeah, he, I guess a lot of his.
The death penalty was still available over there.
Well, it's a federal case now. I don't think it's specific. Yeah, it's federal. So,
That dude
Of
The
course,
one-
something of this,
the one
something
thing
of
about the
this
guy-
caliber is totally.
Yeah, so
defensible.
there's actually a website similar to Twitter. I think it's called, I want to say it's called Gab. I think is what it's called. What it is essentially Twitter with absolutely no like. Yeah, exactly. So, and from what I understand, there's a lot of hate rhetoric, a lot of hate speech, and everything else on that. And I think he was a constant user. And one of his last
Because people get
gabs.
banned on Twitter all the time.
Yeah,
for,
exactly.
Doing sensitive, controversial content.
Just if you want to be racist.
Yeah, so I think he was there with a bunch of tiki torch holders, and he happened to say something along the lines of like, I'm just saying. I think he said, I know what has to be done, and I'm going to go do that now. Something along those lines for his last little gab tweet, Twitter thing.
He was trying to be a righteous martyr.
Right. So my assessment of
Does
this
he have
guy.
a criminal record? Do we know?
I don't know. I didn't do that much diving into it. Like I said, I just did like kind of the skeleton view of it all.
Yeah. Headlines.
But if you knew how much research I put into this other shit, but my assessment of this guy personally is I think he was a constant Alex Jones watcher. I think he definitely had a subscription to Infowars, and I think that maybe
A lot of friends of
yeah,
his.
I think that maybe he was definitely like right wing is our honest truth. I think he not particularly right wing,
This
but
sort of extreme terrorism though, does
yeah.
not fit in with anything.
And honestly, I mean,
politically,
it's
in my opinion.
2018. I think anything anti-Semitic needs to go out the fucking window.
Pee where you want to pee.
That's right. All right. So that being said, we're gonna cut into our second episode. We're gonna cover our main person, the investigation. All right. So this is he was dubbed the Sherlock Holmes of Greenwich Village. We're talking about James A. Brussel here. All right. So throughout the investigation, the prevailing theory was that the bomber was a former Con Ed employee who had a grudge against the company. So they started reviewing Con Ed's employee records, which gave them hundreds of leads. There were also fake tips and crank letters. They were looking into. I said tips. Just the tip.
The tip of the iceberg.
Billy clubs and fake tits looking like Bob.
Bob had bitch tits. So detectives
Meatloaf.
detectives were scattered all throughout the city, checking lawsuit records, mental hospital admissions, and even vocational schools that might actually have bomb part making materials or even classes teaching certain things.
You don't need a school for that though, man. I mean,
They didn't have Google, man.
I went to school and my homie was like, "Hey man, you got chlorine?" I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "What's up?"
The worst part is that people were actually turning in their neighbors right and left. Anyone who was acting strange or seemed like they may have too much knowledge about bombs.
Bob, I told you about the goddamn hedges.
Get the oleanders, Cliff. So
Meatloaf, mom.
Carol,
Meatloaf, mom. Meatloaf.
get all those kids.
So during the ongoing investigation is when the actual first bomb investigation unit was formed, working on nothing but bomb leads. So that was kind of the actual orientation of when it all started. So anyway, in April of 1956, the NYPD put out a multi-state alert for a person who was a skilled mechanic with access to a drill press or a lathe. Now I've worked with lathes. A lathe is just a pipe threading tool. So I mean that's all it is. It's just a fancy word for
That
it.
was a fantastical creature.
Right.
Her soul was devoured and became, like a soulless undead, a wraith, right?
But with an L. So you might be doing the Asian translation.
Learn something new every day.
So anyway, this guy posted mail from White Plains, was over 40, and had a deep-stated hatred of the Consolidated Edison Company. They distributed warning pictures of what the bombs looked like. They also passed out samples of his handwriting. That way, if anybody recognized it, they could notify the authorities.
Damn, how badass did you have to be back then to look at someone's cursive and be like, "Yep, that's Jeremy's." like, what the fuck?
Nonetheless, you never know where a lead's going to come from, man. And with so much information to sort through, like they obviously had for this case, I mean,
In 20 years, if I became a serial killer and wrote everything in cursive, I'd get away from it. I would totally be off scot-free.
So, in White Plains specifically, all right, they reviewed over 500 driver's license applications that all had similarities in their handwriting to the bombers and all the notes found and everything else. So they sent. So they sent over 500 applications to NYPD to sort through. Now, December 2nd, Stephen P. Kennedy, all right, so after ordering what we talked about last time, calling the bombers' activities an outrage and cannot be tolerated, the one that said this is going to be the largest manhunt in the city's history, he also went ahead and said that he promised whoever arrested the bomber an immediate good promotion. So now he's throwing money. They're trying to throw money at it to get anybody back.
A good promotion.
That's right. I mean, you could be a beat walker.
What if I worked at the factory?
added incentive to be a hero.
No, this was.
My factory boss is like, "Congratulations, you're now the foreman." I'm like, "You're fired, asshole."
No, this was specifically for the NYPD. Now, December 27th of 1956, the New York City Board of Estimate and the Patrolmen's Beneficiary Association posted a $26,000 reward for the bomber's apprehension. Now, in today's money, $26,000.
Yeah, what's the conversion?
It's 240 grand in today's money. They were promising almost a quarter mil, which probably is why so many neighbors were getting turned in. Because you got to think it is the 1950s, but people are probably still lost their life savings from just a couple of decades before in the Great Depression.
Well, it's also in the midst of the Red Scare and everything.
Right, so
where
people were getting turned in
everybody
for
was
anything.
suspicious of
Yeah.
their neighbor for just about anything.
Godzilla was born in 54.
So the money and everything else is actually what led to the drastic measures. The entire time Metesky was at work, copycats ran amok. So they were actually getting copycats and fake bombs. So throughout the investigation,
Publicity does.
yeah, simulated bombs and false bomb reports. They were, it thrusted the city's money and all of their resources, sending police on multiple goose chases, and making an already anxious, city all the more nervous. So around 1951, Frederick Eberhardt, 56 years old, and a former Con Ed employee, also with a grudge, sent a fake pipe bomb filled with sugar to the Con Ed's personal director at 4th Irving Place. He was immediately picked up, and at his arraignment that November, an assistant district attorney told the judge, "The defendant is a particular source of annoyance to the New York City police. We are firmly convinced that he is not of sound mind. He has been sending simulated bombs around the city the past few months. Hundreds of police have been called out all hours of the day and night to investigate because of his actions." Eberhardt was sent to Bellevue Hospital for a psychiatric examination.
I was wondering.
Yeah, he was released and his case thrown out several months after his lawyer.
What year was acid invented?
That's going to be a later episode. I can't remember the name of that project, but we'll get into that later. Anyway, his lawyer argued that the package contained no written threats as the law required. So apparently,
This package was
yeah. So apparently, if he wasn't actually threatening through a letter, then they were like, "Let him go. He just sent sugar. It's fine." So he got off.
Getting off on a technicality like
Right.
that, though, man.
Plus, kudos to that lawyer, right? So
Doing their job
we're
well.
gonna take a step back.
show you what we're made
Drink.
of.
All right, so October of 1951, the main waiting room at the Grand Central Terminal was emptied, and 3,000 lockers were searched and emptied after receiving a bomb warning. Over 35 officers took 3 hours because 1,500 of the lockers were currently in use, and there was only one master key to go through all of them. Also, the lead bomb squad investigator had to check all the contents himself. So 1,500 lockers he had to go through on his own.
Could you imagine the guy that has to go through all the poop?
In lockers?
I would prefer that over somebody having to go locker to locker where something could blow up in your
Yeah,
face.
and he was the sole person accountable for it.
Well, that's what I mean. I was trying to get shit. But,
Oh, so he didn't mean fecal matter per se. He meant actual contents.
No. Like I said.
Okay.
Like I said.
For more, like I said, go ahead and check out Centartainment on YouTube for some of our webisodes we've been throwing up. Anyway, December 29th, 1956, at the height of the fake threats, a note left in a phone booth at the Grand Central Terminal said that there was a bomb in the Empire State Building. All 102 floors were searched, emptied, the whole thing. Now, meanwhile, while that was going on, a 63-year-old railroad worker picked up at Grand Central as a suspect died of a heart attack while being interrogated at the East 35th Street precinct. All right, so if you add that up right now,
A lot of people died of heart attacks.
Say wrongful
Interrogations in the
death
50s.
right
So-
there. That's like
so
lawsuits.
as it stands right now, if you remember,
What was this guy?
63. But if you go back to the last episode, the last episode we covered scuff shoes and some minor and a couple serious injuries, but there were no deaths. Right now, the NYPD have more fatalities on their record than the,
SC0, NYPD 1.
right
Who is
now.
the real enemy?
Now, eventually, a couple months later, they ruled the dead man not a suspect. So
Yeah,
This is
How much longer did it take?
it was a couple months.
And this is before the Rodney King days.
few
and all that
weeks,
stuff,
yeah.
Where police brutality was still like
This guy
super
died
rampant.
in fucking interrogation.
Right.
And they think this is the guy for at least a week that set the bomb. This old man who died in interrogation.
Yeah, this geriatric did it all.
This guy couldn't even walk down his fucking hallway without fucking collapsing. And they
Right.
think he walked across Grand Central.
Excellent.
They never even, I couldn't find the actual reasons why. They just thought he was a suspect. So anyway, moving on.
Because he was 63 and died. The cops were idiots.
So after fingerprint experts had and writing experts and the bomb investigation unit made little progress, and the traditional police methods seemingly useless against the erratic bombing campaign, police captain John Cronin approached his friend James A. Brussel, a criminologist, a psychologist, and an assistant commissioner to the New York State Commission for Mental Hygiene, aka
This is the dude.
aka a fucking boss. So quick backstory on Brussel, just so we can get his credentials.
Yeah.
All right.
Hear about that?
So pretty much. So he was born James Arnold Brussel in New York City in 1905. Attending the University of Pennsylvania before he opened up his own psychiatric practice, he was head of the neuropsychiatry at Fort Dix in World War II. In the Korean War, he ran the department for the entire U.S. military. While doing that, he was also an active profiler in the Center Intelligence for the FBI and the CID, which was the Army's Criminal Investigation Department. He was the first ever to have been used for criminal investigations. James A. motherfucking Brussel.
Damn, so this dude, and you gotta think about it, back at the time before DNA processing happened, like, this guy was a straight up, legit, smart human being who knew what his hunches were, who knew what instincts were, and had knowledge that most people on Jeopardy would.
He was
Makes you wonder if he got any of them
He
wrong.
was actually-
and they still went to prison.
I mean, just so we can really cover the actual psychiatric background, he was declared a Freudian psychologist. You're talking like
Oh, wow.
the man. You know what I'm saying? So No, wait. What about what? Bob had bitch tits. So Captain Cronin introduced Brussel to the Inspector Howard E. Finney, head of the NYPD's crime laboratory. In Brussels' office, alongside Finney and two other detectives, he examined the crime scene photos and letters, and he discussed the bombers' metalworking and electrical skills. So while talking with the police, Brussel developed what he called a portrait of the bomber, which now we call a profile. So the bomber's belief of being screwed by Con Ed seemed to rule his thoughts, which led Brussel to the belief that maybe the bomber was suffering from paranoia, which he described as a chronic disorder of insidious development characterized by persistent, unalterable, systemized, logically constructed delusions. Like, that's a fucking mouthful, but in short, delusional paranoia.
Yeah.
All right. So based off of evidence and also dealing with psychopathic criminals on his own, he put forth a number of theories outside of just being pissed at Con Ed. So here's the profile, okay? Now, in determining this profile, he did what he called looking at the crime itself and working backwards. He called that reverse psychology, which we now know
It's not a thing.
right, which is what parents joke to get their kids to do things that they want and everything else. But he coined the phrase reverse psychology with this profile. Now this profile is long, it is drawn out, there's a lot of big words, but he talks so much shit from an intellectual standpoint. Like, the amount of shit talking he does right now is hilarious. So he said, male, as historically most bombers were male. Well proportioned and of average build, based on studies of hospital mental patients. So if you were crazy back in the day, you were also a sportsman. All right, so he was 40 to 50 years of age as paranoia developed slowly. Precise, neat, tidy, based on his letters and the workmanship of his bombs. An exemplary employee, on time and well behaved. A Slav, because bombs were favored in Middle Europe. A Catholic, because most Slavs were Catholic. Courteous but not friendly. Has a good education, but probably not college. Foreign-born or living in a community of foreign-born. Now, the formal tone and old-fashioned phrasing of the letters sounded to Brussel as if they had been written or thought out in a foreign language and then translated into English. Based on the rounded letters of the W's in his handwriting, it was believed to represent breasts, and the slashing and stuffing of these theater seats, Brussel thought something about sex was troubling the bomber, possibly an Oedipus complex, loving his mother and hating his father and other authoritative figures. A loner, no friends, little interest in women, possibly a virgin, unmarried, perhaps living with an older female relative. Probably lives in Connecticut, as Connecticut has high concentrations of Slavs, and many of the bomber's letters were posted in Westchester County, midway between Connecticut and New York City. He also predicted to his visitors in the room that when the bomber was caught, he would be wearing a double-breasted suit buttoned to the top.
hitting everything fast and like basically.
like
So-
crazy.
This entire time, I didn't realize you said Con Ed, and I heard Con Air, and I was like, what the
Immediately
fuck
thinking
is
Nick Cage
Nick
movies.
Cage movies?
So even though police decided to keep the investigation low-key, Brussel convinced the heavily publicized profile, thinking that any wrong assumptions would actually cause the bomber to respond. So the New York Times version was shorter and a little nicer, but got the message across nonetheless. They said, he is a single man between 40 and 50 years old. Introvert, unsocial, but not antisocial. Skilled mechanic, cunning, neat with tools. Egotistical of mechanical skill, contemptuous of other people, resentful of criticism of his work, but probably conceals resentment. Moral, honest, not interested in women.
So
Seems to be a running theme.
Right. High school graduate, expert in civil or military ordnance, religious, might flare up violently at work when criticized, possible motive, discharge, or reprimand, feels superior to critics, resentment keeps growing, present or former Consolidated Edison worker, probably case of progressive paranoia. Now, the thing that bothers me real quick before Mahalo chimes in is that throughout this entire thing, he mentioned Con Ed right and left, and all the things, well, we think maybe he worked for Con Ed or he was mad at Con Ed.
Well, dirt.
Really?
You don't say.
Mahalo.
We thought you were chiming in there.
no,
You look contemplative. You look contemplative.
not at all. I mean, it's all right there. Con Ed.
Right.
All signs
But
point
at the
to
same
Con Ed.
time, you listen to that profile, and the scary part about that profile is it fits most males today.
True.
In a lot of ways.
Not just
Especially in this digital age where there's so much less personal
Right.
interaction and stuff like that. I mean,
which
it's only made the situation so much
I mean,
worse.
think about it. Terrorism is essentially just trying to keep others from doing what they would normally do on a regular basis. That's essentially what social media has done to most people who are cyberbullying. We call it cyberbullying, but in a sense, it in itself is terrorism. You're keeping people from doing what they would normally be doing on a regular day, on a regular basis, on a regular life, by being a cyberbully. And by doing that thing just like that, that profile fits just most people today. Which means you could be a bomber, you could be a bomber, and Oprah could be a bomber too.
Wow, man. I didn't actually think about that when I read that, but you're absolutely correct. That does,
You
yeah.
didn't think about it. That's why I'm on.
All right.
All this insightfulness on your part here.
Yeah. All right. So newspapers did publish the profile on. Actually, they published it on Christmas of 1956. Now, the day after the profile
2
was
years after Godzilla
Now,
was born.
now, so remind me, how many years had he been active again by the time this was
technically, we're gonna say
Couple at this
16,
point?
15, but realistically,
Well, he did have
hardcore for
He had
5
that
year.
lull.
Yeah.
What, 56 you said?
Yeah.
So he did have like that 10-year layoff after the World War had happened.
Yeah,
So,
well, he
so
promised
two
he
bombs.
wasn't gonna do
Yeah,
anything.
2 bombs prior to World War II. Didn't do shit for a decade. Then 1951 hit it. So
Yeah,
30 bombs
and then he
throughout.
amped it back up. So
Yeah.
he'd been going again
30
for like 5 years.
malfunctioning
Yeah.
bombs.
So like a
And
presidential
obviously-
election and a Winter Olympics that time frame. So
Yeah, and
God,
obviously,
could you
this is
imagine
when
the Winter
he's-
Olympics back then?
So the day after the profile was published, the New York Journal American published an open letter, which for people today, an open letter in the newspaper back in the day was essentially a blog, so everybody could go ahead and talk about it. They had published alongside police urging the bomber to give himself up. They promised a fair trial. Now, Brussels' plan actually worked. Metesky wrote back the next day, stating he would not give himself up, and signing the letter FP. Now, in the letter, he revealed a wish to bring Con Ed to justice, of course. He gave his list of locations of bombs from the year and expressed concerns that not all had been discovered. So he really was worried about people getting blown up. He also said in the letter,
Was he really? I mean, he'd been scuffing shoes for the past like 5 years. So I mean, was he really worried someone was gonna lose their peep?
maybe it was the embarrassment. But he also
Well, I mean, once again, didn't we really realized in the previous episode that this guy was never about inflicting harm. He was always
Yeah.
more so about the
look at me, look at me, look at me, look at me. He was a
message
guitar
and
solo.
everything.
So
Wanker.
You fucking wank.
So-
Wanking off here.
So later in the letter, he also stated, "My days on Earth are numbered. Most of my adult life."
Everyone's are.
Yeah, right. Join the club, fucker. So most of my adult life has been spent in bed. My one consolation is that I can strike back even from the grave for the dastardly acts against me. Fuego, we know
That
how
word
much
I
you love it.
so
That's right. So the police edited the letter, of course, and then let the newspaper publish it, along with another open letter on January 10th. asking him for more information about his grievances.
So was he terminally ill or anything? Do we
The
know?
TB, he thinks he's going down,
Oh,
which
yeah,
if
yeah.
untreated, it could be. So Metesky's second letter provided.
Yeah, but untreated back then was majority of Americans.
Well, that's the thing I actually left out on the last episode, alongside a wool sock, alongside fucking letters, alongside the watch parts, alongside the knives. He also left throat lozenges at every single bombing site. But they had no way of screening it, so they're just like, oh, gross. But they did note that it did come from the same brand. They figured out that it was the same brand of throat lozenge, but they got nothing out of it because they didn't have DNA. So Metesky's second letter provided details about the materials used on the bombs. Now he's actually giving more information. The 25 caliber pistol powder was his favorite because he felt, I don't know why, but he felt that shotgun gunpowder didn't have the boom he wanted. He also promised a truce in bombings until March 1st. So he's starting to feel either.
So once again, he's taken well, this is a
But
brief break in comparison, but
But the question is, though, did he promise a truce because now he's actually openly talking? He's like, oh, fuck, I'm giving away too much info? Or do you think that he was absent-minded of that fact? Just like, they're being nice to me, and then just dialed it back?
I think he was drinking, to tell you the truth.
I'm honestly thinking maybe he realized, okay, the extent of the manhunt that they have on me, maybe if I say it's a truce and I'm going to stop doing it, maybe they'll back off.
Right,
A little bit,
and also,
you know, because he's probably starting to
I
worry
don't-
about
now-
getting
but if-
caught at this
I don't think so.
Genuine
I
worry about getting caught at this
I
point.
think he only worries about getting caught when he's not sober. You look at Metesky through everything else that he's done. It's just scare tactics. It's blah blah blah. Here's this little poof.
I mean, it's always been.
But what happens when you start drinking? You release. What is it? A drunken man's words or sober man's thoughts. He probably started drinking and
Oh,
then
sure,
heard
yeah.
about the manhunt and was like, a stupid decision as be. Because if I was on a manhunt, I know that laying low isn't going to stop them from coming after me.
right.
The FBI's most wanted list isn't going to stop them from coming after me. So he's probably drinking, and it was a dumb decision.
But they say he's a delusional whatever, and so
Which
who
comes
knows,
from
you know? I mean,
So, alongside the promise to cease till March 1st, he also explained that he was injured at work and is permanently disabled, explaining Con Ed blocked his workman's comp case, so he had to cover his own medical bills.
so at this point, he's looking for some essence of sympathy too.
Well, that's so. Also in this letter, he explained, when a motorist injures a dog, he must report it. Not so with an injured workman. He rates less than a dog. I tried to get my story to the press. I tried hundreds of others. I typed tens of thousands of words, about 80,000, but nobody cared. I, determined to make these dastardly acts known, I have had plenty of time to think. I decided on bombs. Now, once again, letter gets edited and published, and with another open letter asking for further details and dates. It was published on January 15th, saying that they promised a fair hearing could be held about his compensation claim. So now that they know that that's what he's after, they're like, you know what? Compensation claim, let's get you in here. So they're promising him all kinds of things. They're promising the sky and the moon at this point. All right, so his third letter was his downfall. He described the accident, describing the diagnosis, but he gave the date this time.
Did he want to get caught
that's
at this
so-
point? I mean,
Right. So he gave the date of the injury, September 5th, 1931. All right. He then said that if he didn't have a family that could be branded by his acts, he would have given himself up. He thanked the Journal American for publicizing his case and said that the bombings will never be resumed. That letter wasn't published until the day after his arrest.
wow.
Yeah. So he said, you know what, I'm done. They're like, yeah, you are, fucker.
Yeah, because now we know who you are, and we're not going to give you any additional publicity until you're apprehended. They're probably so far enough along within the case, and they're probably ready to pounce at that point.
So-
you know,
Impressed with the profiler. I mean,
immensely.
Yeah.
regardless of Metesky being a bullshit criminal,
Bullshit artist.
he basically made Penguin look like the best criminal.
I have an umbrella for every occasion.
But
Danny DeVito.
even though he was a nuisance, he was a criminal. The fact that
Criminals can be a nuisance.
profiler, they can be, but I mean, does Batman really ever arrest the graffiti guy?
Yeah, it's like a petty thug
Yeah.
kind of
It does,
thing.
but this dude was like, I'm going fucking Gordon.
I don't
arrest him.
see. I don't think that it's.
And I give it up to this.
Yeah.
Because in a time where you didn't have that technology to help you find the sun, you didn't have DNA, you didn't have all these marvelous wonders. You had good old-fashioned fucking forensics.
An old-fashioned.
This dude was Dick Tracy.
And I mean, and we covered practically everything that he said in that profile in the last episode. He was spot on. Insane.
He was arrested in the double breast.
We're
That
gonna
was
get
this-
to his arrest. So
Now, Brussels is his name. Right?
James A. Brussel.
James A. Brussels. Now, so Brussels, was this like the most high-profile case he had worked on up to this point, presumably?
Yeah, outside of his military and FBI work, I mean, common knowledge. Yeah, this was. I mean, he actually after this went on to actually.
Biggest thing as far as like a
Yeah.
media spectacle
If
of
this was
sorts.
his highest profile case, I mean, I'm glad he's a badass, but if this is his highest profile case, bro, you need a better.
No. This is his highest public profile case. You don't know what he did in the wars.
You were Batman to me, and now you're kind of like Aquaman.
After this, he went on. He went after this. He went on.
I love Jason Momoa.
After this, he went on to help find the Boston Strangler. So he upped his ante.
So he didn't find Aquaman.
Not Aquaman, no.
But this raised his prominence
Exactly.
significantly with such a publicly publicized case.
So,
He found the guy intently and fast.
so we're on.
Efficiently.
We're on to the secretary, guys.
And no one was harmed by Metetsky. The FBI or the NYPD, yeah, but Metetsky, nobody.
It was a controlled blast.
So the NYPD harmed more
Right.
people in the interrogation process.
So, Con Edison clerk Alice Kelly had been searching through old files for employees with serious health problems. On Friday, January 18th, 1957, while searching the final batch of troublesome workers, compensation case files, she found the ones where threats were made. Okay, so a letter where the words were injustice and permanently disabled marked in red drew her suspicions. So she started comparing it to the letters in the Journal American. So these were words that had been printed in the Journal American. So putting two and two together, she decided to check the injury date, September 5th, 1931. George Metesky, an employee from 1929 to 1931, injured in a plant accident. Letters from Metesky were in the file, including with the wording in the newspaper, but the most telling was the phrase dastardly deeds. That term
Yeah.
fucked them. Right. So police were notified before 5 p.m. that evening, but they passed it off as yet just another one of a number of leads that they were following. But they asked the Waterbury, Connecticut police to do a discreet check on Metesky at his house at 17 4th Street. So they were like, it's enough to actually go check out, so go ahead and do this.
Yeah.
So January 21st, 1957, 4 NYPD detectives, accompanied by Waterbury police and a search warrant, arrived at Metesky's home. They asked him to produce a handwriting sample and to make a letter G. He made the G, looked up and said, "I know why you fellows are here. You think I'm the Mad Bomber." The detective said, "What does FBI or FP stand for?" And Metesky responded, "Fair play." He then took them to the garage where they found flashlight batteries, gunpowder, a lathe for the pipe threading, and a pile of mismatched wool socks. Because he liked stuffing all that pipe in the wool socks, he kept the pile of mismatched. I think the wool socks were the dead giveaway. So they asked him to go upstairs and change.
The whole sauce.
So check this out. They asked him to go upstairs and change out of his pajamas, and he came back down wearing a double-breasted suit buttoned to the top.
Wow, Brussels.
Do you know why?
Called it.
Because Brussels knew that this man wanted to be seen.
Now, for Miss Kelly, the
Yeah,
secretary.
good call,
Yeah.
actually. He's going to go out
Fashionable.
looking sharp as
Oh, you
hell.
look at the arrest pictures?
He's like, they are all
He's
going to take
smiling ear
photos
to
of
ear.
me.
He's got a shit-eating grin.
That's what most of these people who have issues with
They want
their
attention.
former employees is they want to be heard, they want to be seen, they feel like their voice hasn't been
Right.
heard, hasn't been seen, so they result to the semi-extreme with this guy. I wouldn't even call it extreme.
And the depth of his intent is obvious based on how long this vendetta went on for. Over 20 years. 26 to 31 to 57.
Yeah, so.
Like an Amazon employee just going off, you know, like, I'm delivering the wrong package to the wrong people. You're getting the dildo and you're getting the semi-wet-me doll.
So, as for the secretary, Miss Kelly, police took credit for the fine, but still offered her the reward money, which Con Ed decided she was just merely doing her job. So Con Ed decided to negate the reward money.
You mentioned that.
Yeah, so she got
You
screwed.
say Con Ed, and I think Nicolas Cage and Con Ed. Go ahead.
Consolidated Edison.
John Cusack.
So,
Dave Chappelle. Ving Rhames.
so Brussel. After this, Brussel went on to profile many more cases, even the Boston Strangler. Over the
And are we
years,
going to be doing an episode about the Boston Strangler?
I might later on after we get a little bit longer. You're further away from the phone.
Fucking Irish.
Yeah, I know, right?
I know.
So,
and we're both Patriots fan.
Right, yeah. Throughout the years, Brussel would actually go and visit Metesky, and they would have conversations and everything else. And
They
Metesky,
would sit down and have palaver. Are
yeah,
you kidding
yeah.
me?
Well, Brussel ended up writing a book over the 20 like high-profile cases that he solved. It's a badass book. $75 actually on Amazon right now. But Metesky
You have
told
your
him,
eye on it,
I do.
obviously.
Christmas present. But Metesky told him point blank. He goes, "I never intended to injure anybody. That's why they were such a small blast." So he knew that he wasn't gonna hurt anybody.
They were small blasts because the dumbass didn't know how to make bombs.
All right, so after Metesky's arrest, he ended up at the Mattawa Hospital for the criminally insane after being declared legally insane and having paranoid schizophrenia. But the court psychiatric experts, by the court psychiatric experts, but he received a year and a half of treatment for his tuberculosis, which ended up actually curing him and helping him out. So even though Con Ed fucked him, his incarceration is what healed him. So, I mean,
Saved his life.
yeah, so light at the end of the tunnel, I guess.
Honestly, just you talking about Brussels coming to visit him and stuff like that. Back to the
Hello,
Batman
Clarice,
reference,
that's what
it
I was
reminded-
thinking.
Well, that
Yeah.
or like Batman coming to visit the Joker in Arkham, and I mean, or even in some of the Halloween movies with Loomis coming to visit Michael. I mean,
You go back to what he just said. Hello, Clarice. I mean, there's a reason why she was able to catch that killer, right? It's because she knew that this man had that mindset.
And not just that.
And that's the crazy thing about these profilers. I mean, this is just someone who's profiling. We haven't even gotten into people who coined the term serial killer.
Right.
I mean,
Wow.
these are people who are able to step into the mind of someone so deranged, so
you have to have
And
you have to have kind of a darkness within yourself to be
right.
able to wade through a serious.
Dude,
you gotta have something waiting. I mean, I think
thick
most
skin,
profilers,
man,
most
and-
of those PIs are just a line away from becoming the next thing.
oh, that's another topic I
bad
want to
day.
touch on later. Is that there's actually
bad
cases
day.
like you know the show Dexter. There's actually cases on file of cops becoming serial killers themselves.
I mean, literally, if you're anybody who's a comic book fan,
Doesn't that happen on Dexter?
Yeah.
I mean, literally, how
Yeah.
close is Batman every single day of his life to becoming Ra's al Ghul?
Right.
Yeah. Well, he's on the verge of.
Every day,
Yeah.
he's every day he struggles with snapping this guy's neck or arresting.
So the
him.
next
Well, I mean,
episode.
Killing Joke, the creation of the Joker, one bad day.
Yeah, the next.
One bad day.
Off the
The
edge.
next same episode, we're gonna try to talk more about Marvel for the Marvel fans because we covered a lot of fucking DC.
We're just talking about DC because they got nothing else.
All right. So anyway, this is the
Batman is the
crazy part,
greatest
guys.
superhero ever.
Metesky was actually released in 1973, stating that since there was actually no jury present during his conviction, they didn't go along with what they were supposed to do. But what they tried to do prior to that was actually transfer him to Creedmoor Psychiatric Center. There, the doctors determined that he was harmless, and on December 13th of 1973, he was let back out into the world. The only condition of his release was that he regularly visits the Connecticut Department of Mental Hygiene Clinic near his own house. He was interviewed upon his release. He was interviewed upon his release and apologized for the bombings, but pretty much said, "Fuck Con Ed." So he was still. He was,
did.
he was still on.
But then
that.
it's still
Yeah.
the hatred is still there. He's like, I lost 16 years of my life just now.
It's like Ripley getting
Right.
interviewed and being like, "Oh, well, you know, your whole life's been put back together, Ripley. How do you
So-
feel?" Fuck Whalen.
I still
Fuck
hate
Whalen.
that bitch.
Now I don't know if it's a happy ending or not, but he died at the age of 90 after thinking he would die in his 30s in his own home.
I mean, he didn't kill anybody, so I mean,
Right.
that is a happy ending. He probably died watching some
Now-
Browns or Broncos football game or Patriots losing another Super Bowl.
Here's-
Whatever.
He experienced some injustice, but obviously he took his repercussions
Right.
and retaliation far further than he should have, and
So-
he was obviously there's some mental instability.
So now
here.
the craziest thing that I found throughout this case wasn't the bombs, wasn't the mimics, wasn't even the profiling, which was very fascinating.
Mimic, good movie.
But the craziest thing that I found.
Guillermo del Toro.
The craziest thing that I found was that once they pieced together the whole Con Ed thing, for over 2 years, Con Ed denied the police access to their files, saying that they had already gotten rid of their files from the 1930s. They didn't hold on to any of that. Now, we know that that's not true because the secretary found it. Now,
Of course.
I don't know why they did so.
This company was shady.
That's what I'm saying. So I'm not sure exactly why they did that, but for 2 years.
Do we know what Con Ed's dealings mostly were?
No, they were just a utility company. I didn't really dive too much into them. That might be on the next thing if we want to dive into some conspiracy theory shit. If you want to hear that, let us know, because I definitely love conspiracy theory. I wouldn't mind having like the next episode be that and then cover our next case. But for right now, what I can gather was maybe embarrassment that they were the cause of this.
Definitely
Also, maybe it was the fact that they thought that maybe they would be held accountable
for
and they didn't want to get
something.
charged, or maybe there was actual evidence of them purposely screwing their employees and doing something shady, like you just mentioned, or it was just the sheer lack of knowledge of what they actually had on file and didn't want to put.
Embarrassment at the lack of
Right, they could have very well.
It's maybe a combination of a lot of these things.
1950 something, male prowess is the height of its fucking everything.
Right.
It's Mad Men days,
How
yeah.
many times you can't even ask a man for directions at that point in time because he's going to tell you he knows the directions. I mean, we've grown to.
I've gotten lost that way.
Into a certain kind of person that we are now, but I mean, the 1950s was all about masculinity, being the man, knowing the directions, knowing the rules, knowing how everything works.
How the tables have turned.
Yeah.
If you're the CEO of a major utility company who probably didn't actually have any information on you to begin with, you have a little community people, news people who want to talk to you. First thing they have to say is no. You're going to deny. And not just simply because you're a man, but simply because you want public image.
Yeah, it's saving face,
Where's
basically.
Con Ed now? Gone.
Did he kill the Con Ed?
On air.
Did he kill the Con
They
Ed?
landed and Steve Buscemi got away.
Kill the Fed. That's a
I want to see the movie
conspiracy
of
theory.
Steve Buscemi's character getting away from Con Air.
We keep going back.
That would be a great fucking
He was
movie.
gambling at the end.
Let's
I
just
remember.
get Steve Buscemi on this motherfucker.
Steve Buscemi in anything.
Steve, if you're listening, we need you to Buscemi your ass over here.
So Steve Buscemi and Will Arnett is who we're talking to right now. All right, so
Yeah.
that actually wraps up the second episode. The next one, the next actual case we're going to cover is going to be Richard Chase, the Vampire of Sacramento.
Ooh, this
Just so you guys know, Dick Chase. That's what
Richard
that
is a dick.
So
Dick Chase. Dick Chase.
we
is. Dick Chase.
so we put up a webisode on our Facebook, facebook.com/ChironBandAZ. You can find us at Sense Entertainment on YouTube. We're gonna be doing webisodes monthly, so if you like that, definitely subscribe, like, share, all that jazz. It's gonna be alongside the Profiling Pain episodes on YouTube. You can also find it soon on Spreaker, Spotify. I mean, anything that you listen to podcasts on. Big thank you to Age of Radio for picking up this show already. They're gonna be doing me a solid. So we're gonna be, Jeremy and Danielle Quintatori, as they call themselves. So
That's Keent at the top.
that's right. So thank you guys very much. That's Jeremy Quintanilla and Danielle Elatori /Quintanilla. So thank you guys very much for that.
Back to the
Yeah. So
tower. All things.
that's it, man. That's episode 2. The next episode, the Vampire of Sacramento. As we
AKA Batman versus Morbius.
So we are a band. So to put that into a musical reference, we're gonna be taking that one. We're gonna crank that to 11. It's gonna be bloody. It's gonna be gory. It's gonna be some. Hopefully some stomach turning shit if we do it right. So I'm looking forward to the research, but I'm not.
This guy drank real people's blood.
Yeah, and I don't know who I'm gonna be at the end of this, so we'll see.
I think this guy came early too, and he inspired a lot of.
Oh,
other-
we're gonna
Seventies,
spend
70s,
we're
right?
gonna spend a lot of time in the 1970s. So strap on, motherfuckers.
Weird ass times.
Yeah.
The time of psychedelics.
Oh, dude.
Fucking just fucking.
Yeah,
man.
it's
You said I could cuss, so I'm gonna start fucking cussing.
Yeah, free
So-
love was
Someone's
the
gotta
60s,
bring
and
the
it carried
fucking
on.
ingenuity and fucking truth to this fucking thing.
I counted 4.
How much
Was that 4
fucking did
fucks?
that-
That was 4?
How much fucking did that Wilt Chamberlain do? All them fathered children's he's got all of them.
I mean, technically, Attila the Hun is sired, like, you know, what was it 35% of the fucking Asian population? He left least amount of footprint out of any fucking crazy. Anyways, Matetsky,
The 1970s.
Shoe Stainer, the Profiler, Profound, amazing.
All right,
Brussel
so
is a badass. He is Chris's hero.
That's
Wait,
right.
he's not
Brussel
your
is
hero.
like
He's
Batman
not
before
nice.
Batman. He's like Arkham Knight. Blah, blah, blah.
So for music, for anything video, anything of us, you can check out Entertainment on YouTube. You can go to our facebook.com/ChironBandAZ. I am Omega Reverb Nation. That's right. We have a SoundCloud floating around. I don't know how active that is.
Best spot to go to is reverbnation.com/ChironBandAZ.
There you go.
as well.
And then Fuego is Jaime and Fuego on all the socials.
Yep, all the social media sectors, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. It's spelled like Jamie, but it's technically Spanish, so JAIMEENFUEGO. Jaime and
You can
Fuego,
find 'em-
and you'll find pretty much everything I'm doing. Constant
That's right.
coverage of the hottest entertainment with an edge. I have Fuegotainment relaunching on YouTube, and that's spelled just the same as my name. So youtube.com/.
11/11/2018. Look for that release. I am.
Yeah, so I think this will be going up.
Yeah. So
Before or after? I don't know.
this one will be after. We're gonna launch the first episode probably tonight, and then after that. Oh no, yeah, I guess you're right. Yeah, it'll be up. Anyway, so without further ado, man, you can find me at Omega Twiz 5150 on Instagram. Mahalo is gonna be Michael Onak on whatever socials you decide to find him at. And then you can also email us.
And delivering pizza.
You can also email us at centertainment@gmail. But without further ado, man, you guys have been amazing. This has been Profiling Payne. Stay metal, mofos. Until the next time.
That's right.
Sprawling.